టెక్నాలజీలో ఫిషరీస్లో మీకు గుడ్ నెక్స్ట్ టాపిక్ ఇంపార్టెంట్ టాపిక్ వచ్చి గుడ్ ల్యాబొరేటరీ ప్రాక్టీసెస్. సో గుడ్ ల్యాబొరేటరీ ప్రాక్టీసెస్లో the evolution and significance of good laboratory practice in food processing okay. The evaluation and significance of good laboratory practice in good food processing and safety law. So what is the good laboratory practice? What is that? The GLP. So good laboratory practice or GLP is a set of principles intended to assure the quality and integrity of laboratory studies. So intend to support research or issuing marketing permits for products regulated by government agencies. Okay. So okay, is a set of principles intended to assure the quality and integrity of laboratory studies. Okay, so intend to support research or issuing marketing permits for products regulated by government agencies. So GLP applies to non-pharmaceutical agents such as color additives, food contaminations limit, food packaging and medical devices. Okay. So good laboratory practice is a set of principles intend to assure the quality and integrity of laboratory studies. So intend to support research or issuing marketing permits for products regulated by government agencies. So GLP applies to non-pharmaceutical agents such as color additives, and food contaminations limits. So food packaging and medical devices. Okay. India has become the third key emerging economy after South Africa and Singapore. Okay, India has become the third key emerging economy. So after South Africa and Singapore to join the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. Okay, OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development System for mutual acceptance of data in the assessment of chemicals. So ensuring that the results of non-clinical chemical safety tests done here will be accepted in all other member countries. Okay. This is a good laboratory practice. GLP is a set of principles intended to assure the quality and integrity of laboratory studies. So intended to support research or issuing marketing permits for products regulated by government agencies. Okay. So GLP applies to non-pharmaceutical agents such as color additives, food contaminations limits, so food packaging and medical devices. Okay, India has become the third key emerging economy, so after South Africa and Singapore. Okay, to join the Organization for Economic Cooperative and Development System, to organize the Economic Cooperative and Development System for mutual acceptance of data in the assessment of chemicals, ensuring that the results of non-clinical chemical safety tests so done here will be accepted in all other member countries. Okay, next good laboratory practices lone the company's reputations can be positively turned with. The company's reputations can be positively turned with what is found in these documents. So poor records, reorganization reports, a lack of understanding of records and reporting techniques may return a customer away. Okay, so the company has a reputations can be positively turned with what is found in these documents. What is found in these documents? Poor records, deorganized reports, a lack of understandings of recording and reporting techniques may turn a customer's way. Okay. Conversely, performing testing in a safe and accurate manner through validation and ongoing best practices and techniques can result in a higher level of confidence over the high quality and safety of the products. Okay, these are the GLPs. So GLP is a conventionally performing testing in a safe and accurate manner. So safe గా మెయింటైన్ చేస్తూ అలాగే అక్యురేట్ మేనర్ త్రూ ద వ్యాలిడేషన్స్ ఉంటూ అండ్ ఆన్గోయింగ్ best practices too and techniques can result in a higher level of confidence over the high quality and safety of the products. So GLP was first introduced in New Zealand and Denmark. So GLP first introduced చేసిన country వచ్చి New Zealand and Denmark in the 1972. So GLP was instituted in US following cases of fraud generated and by toxicology labs and submitted to the FDA pharmaceutical companies. Okay, so US following the cases of fraud generated by toxicology labs and submitted to the FDA pharmaceutical companies. So industrial biotest labs, IBT labs. Okay, so was the most notable cases so where thousands of safety tests for chemical manufacturing were falsely claimed to have been performed. So was the most notable case where thousands of safety tests for chemical manufacturers were falsely claimed to have performed. So these issues were made public in the hearing at the US Congress, so which led to the Food and Drugs Administration's publications of proposed regulations in GLP in the 1976. Okay, the Environmental Protection Agency, that is called the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, had also encountered similar problems in data submitted to it and issued its own draft GLP regulations in the 1979 and 1980s, publishing the final rules in the 1983. Okay, so what is the GLP was first introduced in New Zealand and Denmark in the 1972 year. So GLP was instituted in US following cases of fraud generated by toxicology labs and submitted to the FDA pharmaceutical companies. So FDA pharmaceutical companies. So industrial biotest labs was the most notable cases where thousands of safety tests for chemical manufacturing were falsely claimed to have been performed. Okay, so these issues were made public in the hearing at the US Congress, so which led to the Food and Drugs Administration's FDA publications of proposed regulations on GLPs in 1976. Okay, proposal of regulations on GLP in the 1976. The Environmental Protection Agency had also encountered similar problems in data submitted to it. Okay, the Environmental Protection Act, that is called the EPA, had also encountered similar problems in data submitted to it and issued its own draft GLP regulations in 1979 and 1980s, publishing the final rules in the 1983. So what this is the GLP. GLP is a cooperative of the good laboratory practices, is a set of principles intended to assure the quality and integrity of laboratory studies of the packaging medical devices, and India has become the third key emerging economic hub to South Africa and Singapore to join the organizations for economic and cooperative development. Non-clinical chemical safety tests done here will be accepted in all other member countries. Okay, So poor records, reorganized reports, and lack of understandings of recording and reporting techniques may turn a customer's way. Conversely, performing testing in a safe and accurate manner through validations and ongoing best practices and techniques can result in a high level of confidence over the high quality and safety of the products. Okay. So this is the GLP is the first introduced of the 1972. After that, rules and regulations passed on the 1976. After that, data submission issued one draft 19 GLP regulations in the 1979 and 1980s, publishing the final rules of the 1983. Okay. So data generated in the testing of chemicals is one OECD member country in the accordance with the OECD test guidelines and the principles of GLP are accepted in all other OECD members countries. Okay, so data generated in the testing of chemicals, so in the OECD member country in accordance with the OECD test guidelines and the principles of GLP are accepted in all other OECD member countries. Okay. After that, GLP is a quality system concerned with the organizational process and conditions under which non-clinical health and environmental safety studies are planned, performed, monitored, recorded, achieved, and reported. Okay, so GLP is a quality system concerned with the organizational process and conditions under which the non-clinical health and environmental safety studies are planned, so monitored, recorded, achieved, and reported. Okay, so these are the good laboratory practices of the main contents. And so this is the data generated in the testing of chemicals in one OECD member country. In accordance with OECD test guidelines and the principles of GLP are accepted in all other OECD member countries. Okay. So GLP is a quality system concerned with the organizational process and conditions under which non-clinical health and environmental safety studies are planned, performed, monitored, recorded, achieved, and reported. Okay. So these are the GLP is the good laboratory practice, good laboratory practices. So what is the OECD mean? Organization of economic cooperative and development. Organization, economic cooperative and development. So what is the GLP principles? So GLP and so good laboratory principles. So a good laboratory practices లో మీకు వాట్ టైప్ ఆఫ్ ప్రిన్సిపల్స్ ఉన్నాయి? ఈ యొక్క జిఎల్పి ప్రిన్సిపల్స్లో ఏంటంటే మెయిన్గా ఆర్గనైజేషన్ అండ్ పర్సనల్స్. సో ఆర్గనైజేషన్ అండ్ పర్సనల్స్ అందులో మనకి ఏంటంటే సో మేనేజ్మెంట్ రెస్పాన్సిబిలిటీస్, స్పాన్సర్ రెస్పాన్సిబిలిటీస్ అండ్ స్టడీ డైరెక్టర్ రెస్పాన్సిబిలిటీస్ అండ్ ప్రిన్సిపల్ ఇన్వెస్టిగేటర్ రెస్పాన్సిబిలిటీ, అలాగే స్టడీ పర్సనల్ రెస్పాన్సిబిలిటీస్. ఓకే, సో ఆర్గనైజేషన్స్ అండ్ పర్సనల్స్లో సో మేనేజ్మెంట్ responsibilities and the sponsor responsibilities, so study director responsibilities, principal investigator responsibilities, so study personal responsibilities. Okay, so these are the organization and personals. After that, quality assurance program lo mainly quality assurance personnel maintain చేస్తాం. After that, facilities lo test system facilities for test and reference items, so test system facilities, so facilities for test and reference items. So after that, equipments, reagents and materials. Okay, so equipment and reagents and materials. So organization and GLP principles including the main grounded one principles ఏంటంటే organization and personals. Okay, organization and personals, so management responsibilities and sponsor responsibilities. So study director responsibilities is principal investigator responsibilities. So study personnel responsibilities. So after quality assurance programs, so quality assurance personnel. So facilities law, so test system facilities. So facilities for test and reference items. So after equipment reagents and materials. So okay, after test system lo, so physical and chemical biological. Okay, test system lo మనకు physical, chemical and biological. So test and the reference items లో standard operating procedures. After performance of study plan and conduct a study. After that, reporting of results. After the archival storage of records and reports. Okay, these are the GLP's principles of the GLPs. So, good laboratory practice principles లో మెయిన్గా ఆర్గనైజేషనల్ పర్సనల్స్. సో అందులో మనకి మేనేజ్మెంట్ రెస్పాన్సిబిలిటీస్ అండ్ స్పాన్సర్ రెస్పాన్సిబిలిటీస్, స్టడీ డైరెక్టర్ రెస్పాన్సిబిలిటీస్ and principal investigator responsibilities. So study personal responsibilities. After that, quality assurance program lo quality assurance personnel. So facilities lo, so test system facilities. So facilities for test and reference items. After equipment, reagents and materials. Next, so test system lo physical and chemical biological systems and the test and reference items and the standard operating procedures. So and performance of study plan and conduct of study. So next to reporting of results or archival storage of records and reports. So storage of records and reports. So after OECD means organization of economic, okay, cooperative and system. Okay, so OECD development. Okay, OECD means organization, economic, cooperative and development. Okay, so OECD publishes guidelines that usually have to be followed for GLP compliance. They are widely required by agencies doing risk assessment of chemicals. So the United States FDA has rules of GLP in 21. Okay, so OECD publishes some guidelines that usually have to be followed for GLP compliance. So they are widely required by agencies doing risk assessments of chemicals. So the United States of FDA has rules of GLP in 21. Okay, preclinical trials on animals in the United States of America use these rules prior to clinical research in humans. Okay, so first preclinical trials on animals in the United States of America use these rules prior to the clinical research in humans. So first preclinical trials humans పైన చేసిన తర్వాత after that GLP rules ఏంటి, FDA rules ఏంటి పాస్ ఆన్ అవుతాయి అన్నమాట. ఓకే, so research in the US not conducted under these restrictions or research done outside is not US not conducted according to the OECD guidelines or FDA rules might be in addition admissible in support of new drug application in the US. Okay, so research in the US not conducted under these restrictions or research done outside US not conducted according to the OECD guidelines or FDA rules might be admissible in support of a new drug application in the US. So these are the OECD publishes guidelines of the GLP in the FDA rules in the United States of America, GLP in the 21. So preclinical trials of the animals in United States of America, these rules prior the clinical trials in the humans. Okay, so new drugs application in the USA guidelines. After that, European Council. So these are the European Council. Since 1987, the European Council has adopted two basic derivatives and a decision relating to the applications of the GLP principles. So Directive 2004/10/E, the European Parliament, and of the Council of 11th February 2004 and the harmonizations of laws. Okay, so European Council. After that, European Council law. So since 1987, since 1987, the European Council had adopted two basic derivatives. So two basic derivatives and a decision relating to the application of the GLP principles. So GLP principles, directives 2004/10/E, the European Parliament, and of the Council of 11th February 2004 on the harmonizations of laws, so regulations and administrative provisions relating to the applications of the principles of good laboratory practices and the verification of their applications of test can on chemical substances. Okay. So regulations and administrative provisions relating to the applications of the principles of good laboratory practices and the verification of their applications for test on chemical substances. Okay, chemical substances. Next, this directives lays down the applications of the member states, the designation, the authorities of responsibility for GLP's inspections in their territory. So it also comprises the requirements for reporting and for the internal markets, mutual acceptance data. Okay, so this directive lays down the applications of member states to designate the authorities' responsibilities for GLP inspections in their territory. So it also comprises the requirements for reporting and for the internal market. So mutual acceptance data. Okay. So after the directive 2004/9/EC of the European Parliament and of the Council of the 11th February 2004 on the inspections and their verifications of good laboratory practices. Okay, so this European Parliament is a Council of the 11th February 2004 on the inspection and verification of good laboratory practices. So GLPs requires that the OECD revised guides for compliance monitoring procedures. So for GLP and the OECD guidelines, so for the conduct of test facilities inspections. And study audit must be followed during laboratory inspections and study audits. Okay. This derivative lays down the obligations of the member states to designate the authorities' responsibilities in GLP inspections in their territory. It is also comprises three requirements for reporting and for the internal market. So mutual acceptance data. So directives of 2004/9/EC, so of the European Parliament and the Council of 11th February 2004 on the inspections and verification of good laboratory practices. So like that, GLPs requires that the OECD revised guides of the compliance monitoring procedures for GLP and the OECD guidelines for the conducting of test facilities inspections and study audits must be followed during laboratory inspections and study audit. Okay, so after 89/569 EEC Council decision of the 28th July 1989 and the acceptance by the European Economic Community so of an OECD decisions, recommendations and compliance with the principles of good laboratory practices. Okay, so 89/569 EEC Counseling decisions of 28th July 1989 and the acceptance by the European Economic Community of an OECD decision, so recommendations and compliance with the principles of good laboratory practices. Okay, so these are the European Councils and OECD and the principles of the GLPs. So good laboratory practices. Good laboratory practices. After that, good laboratory practices. So these are the set of the principles of intent ensure that the quality and integrity of laboratory studies instead of support search and issue marketing permits for products regulated by government agencies. So GLP applies as the India has become the third key emerging economy after South Africa and Singapore. So to join the Organizations for Economic Cooperative and Development, that is called the OECD. So system for mutual acceptance of data in the assessment of chemicals, ensuring that the results of non-clinical chemical safety tests done here will be accepted in all other member countries. Okay. So CLP was first introduced in the New Zealand, Denmark in the 1972. So these are the US GLP is instituted in US following cases of toxicology lab and APD pharmaceutical companies and industrial test labs was most notable cases were thousands of safety and tests for chemical manufacture were falsely claimed to have been performed. These issues were made public in the hearings at the US Congress, which led to the Food and Drugs Administration. Okay, publications of proposed regulations in the GLPs in the 1976. The Environmental Protection Agency had also encountered similar problems in data submitted to it and issued its own draft GLP regulations in the 1979 and 1980s, publishing the final rules in the 1983. Okay. So the data generated is the testing of chemicals in one OECD member country, the accordance with the OECD test guidelines and the principles of GLP are accepted in the other OECD member countries. So GLP is a quality system concerned with the organizational process and conditions under which non-clinical health and environmental safety studies are planned, performed, monitored, recorded, achieved and reported. Okay. So GLP is the organizational personnel management responsible after quality assurance program, facilities and equipment, reagents, material, test system, test reference items. So standard operating procedures, performance of study, so reporting of results Virtual storage of records and reports. OECD publishes what is the organizations for economy, cooperative and development. Okay, so these are the rules of the FTA rules in the USA combined with the GLP, the new drug application in the US. Okay, so after that European Council, so European Council in 1987, after that development of the 11th February 2004, there's rules and regulations of the GLP. Okay, so